Today we're going to talk about the iPhone 15 and why it might actually get canceled in a certain country, how Microsoft is coming for Apple's neck in multiple categories, why police are literally handing out AirTags like they're candy, new details about that 15-inch MacBook Air coming next month, and much more. And as always, if you're not already subscribed to the free Apple Den newsletter, check it out. It's the first link down in the description below. All right, so the EU is already threatening Apple over the iPhone 15, even though the iPhone 15 is not even here yet. So we already know that Apple is planning to add USB-C accessories to its MFI or Made for iPhone program, and that in turn is going to restrict the charging and data speeds for non-MFI cable. So basically if you buy, an Amazon Basics USB-C cable on Amazon, it's not going to charge as fast as Apple's USB-C, charger. But now this has taken a turn for the worse for Apple because a European commissioner has just sent Apple a letter warning them that limiting the functionality of USB-C cables would not be permitted and it would prevent iPhones from being sold in the EU. So, obviously this law goes into effect in December 2024. So technically, Apple kind of has 2 more generations of iPhone to go before they have to really comply. So I don't know what the rules say, the little, small print, but it seems like Apple can do whatever they want for the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 16. They don't really have to comply until the iPhone 17. But what's interesting is that the EU is really pushing to try to get Apple to stop doing this, even with the iPhone 15, even though the law doesn't go into effect until December 2024. So, I'm not sure if they have the rights to just simply not allow the iPhone to be sold in the EU, but this is going to be a developing story. We're going to hear more about this, I'm sure, because it's getting quite interesting. And in my last video, I had somebody ask me, how would Apple know, if it's a USB-C cable from Apple or if it's from another company? And the way it's done is there's a little chip, a little authentication chip inside the USB-C port that basically tells the iPhone if it's MFI certified or not. So I would assume that Apple actually is going to go through with this for the iPhone 15 and probably the iPhone 16 as well. So I would expect those MFI cables to be, in high demand once the iPhone 15 with USB-C comes out. So who knows? Again, the plot thickens after this letter was sent. All right, so we know that Apple is planning to launch their 15-inch MacBook Air next month, right? Well, now it looks like we're seeing inventory pile up at the supply chains, which is pretty much confirming that this launch is imminent. But despite the release of this new 15-inch MacBook Air, Apple is expecting to see a single-digit decrease in overall MacBook shipments for 2023. And I would assume that we're going to see quite the uptick in MacBook shipments near the end of this year when we get M3, but I just feel like most people right now are not really, jumping and, wanting to go out and buy an M2 product. Like when this new MacBook Air gets released, I know it's really all about the size, but still that M2 chip is going to hold some people back because they're looking forward to M3. And speaking of the M3 chip, do you think that Microsoft will be able to develop a chip that is faster and better than Apple's M series chips? And I say that because they're actually working on this right now. Now we've heard about Microsoft building their own ARM-based chips for years now, but it seems that they are really dialing in on this now because several job listings just recently went up for positions related to custom silicon accelerators, SoCs, and high-performance, high-bandwidth designs. So it looks like Windows 12 might be very ARM-focused, and Microsoft could be the lone competitor to Apple's silicon right now because honestly, at this point, nothing comes close to Apple's M series chip. So it will be very interesting. And honestly, if there is one company to do it, it could be Microsoft. And speaking of Microsoft, they're going at Apple's neck, not only for that M series chip to try to overtake that chip, but also in regards to privacy focused AI in the form of a private ChatGPT. So we all know that Apple is usually best in class when it comes to privacy, but they've fallen so far behind in this AI ChatGPT race that now Microsoft is working on a more secure version of ChatGPT before Apple even unveils any type of AI ChatGPT competitor. Microsoft's Azure Cloud Server unit plans to offer a privacy-focused version of ChatGPT running on dedicated cloud servers where customer data is kept separate and does not communicate with the main system. Now, this service aims to attract businesses like banks and healthcare institutions, those companies who have been hesitant to adopt ChatGPT due to concerns about privacy and sensitive data being leaked. And this move comes on the heels of OpenAI selling a private version of ChatGPT to Morgan Stanley. So I will say one thing in regards to Apple and AI. They better announce something at the Worldwide Developers Conference, because AI is something that is extremely hard to come back from. Like when you've fallen this far behind, usually Apple has no problem, being the laggard of the group, where they're way behind and then they eventually catch up and then they do it better, But with AI, I just feel like it's not that easy. It's not as simple with AI. Unless they've been doing something in the back end for the past 10 years that we just really haven't known anything about, it's going to be very hard for them to catch up if they don't launch something this year. So I really think we need to see something at the Worldwide Developers Conference. It's the perfect platform for it. Speaking of Apple's business, they just announced their Q2 2023 earnings, and while their overall revenue was down 3% year over year, everything else looked pretty solid. And honestly, only 3% down year over year, given this economy, is not bad at all. So you can see here the Mac revenue came in under at $7.17 billion versus $7.74 billion. So a big miss on Mac revenue. And then for iPhone revenue, we had $51.33 billion versus $48.97 billion. So a nice beat on iPhone revenue. And they also announced that they're nearing 1 billion subscriptions, which is an insane amount of subscriptions. And then as for layoffs, a lot of companies announce layoffs when they announce their earnings. And a lot of people expected Apple to announce some type of layoff, maybe not mass layoffs, but some layoffs. But Tim Cook said in an interview with CNBC that he views mass layoffs as a last resort, and that is something that they are not planning to do. So that is good news for Apple employees and just Apple as a business as a whole. That really speaks volumes. All right, now switching topics completely. Imagine you live in an area where crime and theft is so bad that the police are literally handing out AirTags like candy. Well, that's a reality in New York City. The NYPD is providing free AirTags to 500 residents in the 43 precinct in New York City to combat the major spike in car thefts. This area has had more than 200 grand larceny auto cases in the past year. So police are hoping that these AirTags can help locate the stolen cars and kind of prevent them from being stolen to begin with and bring those thieves to justice. And the NYPD and really police all over the US have been giving warnings to Hyundai and Kia owners since there's a viral TikTok that shows how to steal these specific cars. Now, I watched that TikTok and it's insane how easy it is to steal these. Like a little kid could do it. So that's scary. And, they did push out a software update for those cars to patch that. But still, those are the hot targets when it comes to vehicle theft right now. And then finally, would you pay anything for a signed Steve Jobs check? And I say that because a $175 check from 1976 that is signed by Stephen Jobs is currently up for auction and has already surpassed $20,000. Now, if you're like me, you're probably wondering, why is a check with Steve Jobs' signature worth $20,000 plus? I've seen, signatures of Steve Jobs go for much less than that. And that's because there's more to this. Take a look at the address on this check, because it reads 770 Welsh Road, Suite 154. That is the location of an answering service and mail drop that Apple used while still operating out of the famous Jobs family garage. And to me, that's easily the coolest part of this item, and obviously to the high bidder as well. It's pretty cool. So that's awesome. So if you have a lot of money and you're an Apple collector, check this auction out. It ends on May 11th. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, check out the new iOS weekly video, which is linked right here, that just got published yesterday. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.